Hey guys, this is Joseph from Play Tennis, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about 6 common mistakes that I see beginner players make. So if you fall into this category of being a beginner, or even if you're an intermediate player, just wanting to make sure that you're sealed with having the solid foundations, stay tuned and enjoy the video. Key point number 1 is not holding the racket correctly. And when I say this, I'm talking about how we hold the racket on the grip when executing a specific shot. The most common one I see is when beginner players going in for the volley and they're holding it with what I call a frying pan grip, okay? Almost like a full Western, and they try and shove the ball like this, okay? If it works for you, it works, right? But I'd say in the long run, a more sustainable, better way to hit a volley, a more technically sound way, is using continental grip. Okay, that's standard rule of thumb. Continental grip for executing volleys on both sides. We want to avoid any sort of funny business like this. Okay, with the continental, we're going to be able to hit cleaner, more sustainable volleys. Okay, there are other examples when it comes to serve, forehand grip, backhand grip. Okay, but that's the most prominent one I see, is using the wrong grip on the volleys. If you want to go into detail on the grips for all the different shots, we have a detailed video on that on our channel, so check it out. Key point number 2 is not paying attention to the footwork. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you some of my footwork here. And I do a lot of footwork practice with my students, okay, sometimes throughout the session, and often they don't like it, but I mean well when I want them to practice their footwork, especially for those that really want to progress fast or efficiently to the next level. Footwork, I always say to my students, is the most important thing in tennis, okay, because it's going to allow us to get into position effectively so we can do our ground strokes, our volleys, and whatever else in the most efficient manner. So basic footwork that we shouldn't skip out on: sidestepping. All right, when should we use the sidestep? I'll show you now. So let's say I'm going to execute forehand shot. Okay, staying on my toes, not resting back on my feet like this. This is called the lazy stance. Okay, staying on the balls of our feet. All right, and when I go out to hit my forehand, I'm just going to run to the ball, standard forehand. After executing the shot, I'm going to shuffle or sidestep back to the center. Okay, why do I want to sidestep back? It's so I'm facing the court after striking the ball, and I'm also keeping myself in a neutral position in relation to the court. So I'm setting myself up for the next shot. Imagine I go and execute my forehand and I turn and run back this way. If my opponent hits back to the same side, I'm in a bit of trouble because I'm going to have to do a 180 turn again to get to the ball. But if I execute my forehand, sidestep, I can easily change direction and I'm staying sharp facing the court. So again, I'm emphasizing this one. For me, this is it's the most important one, is the footwork, guys. Okay, don't neglect your feet. Common mistake number 3 is not using the body on your shots. And when I say this, I mean, I see some beginner players just using their arm to execute their ground strokes or their arms, okay? Ideally, we want to be getting into position with our great footwork, okay? And rotating the body into the shot on both forehand and the backhand side. Benefits of using the body in our shots is that we're going to be able to get easy power. If I was just relying on my arm to generate the power and I wasn't using the rest of my body, my power is limited. However, if I use my whole body from all the way down from the balls of my feet to my hips, to my torso, I'm going to be able to generate some great power. Check it out. Okay. Really rotating into the shot. Key point number 4 is trying to swing too hard on their shots. Now this might clash with the previous key point a little bit, because just now you saw me really swing at the ball. However, it's important that we have our technique correct and that we're using our body correctly in every stroke before we try and execute big, hard shots. Okay? If I didn't have proper technique and I wasn't using my feet and my body, but I was just using my arm and just trying to overcompensate and hit the ball as hard as I can, I'm sort of just playing with not much intention. Okay? So before we start executing big shots, we want to ensure the foundations are solid. Okay? So this comes with doing lots of drills and starting slow, okay? Ensuring that we're using the feet, the body, correct technique, holding the racket correctly. Okay? Once we get all this right, then we can start to put in a bit more force. Okay? So that's the 4th common mistake I see beginners make, is swinging too hard with improper technique. And in the long run, that could lead to injury. So that's something you really have to watch out for. The 5th common mistake that I see beginners make is not following through with the shot. Okay, so whether you're hitting a soft shot, medium pace shot, or you're really just swinging for the fence, we want to ensure that the follow through nice and smooth and full. We don't want to end up shoving the ball. Okay, when I say shoving the ball, sort of not following through, maybe because you're a bit tense or hesitant or scared of missing. But again, it's important to have a proper follow through in order to ensure that our shots are more consistent and powerful. Okay, whether I'm going for a slow shot here, you see I'm going to slow it down a bit, I still have a full follow through. I don't just stop at the contact point. Okay, this is important because by doing the full follow through, regardless of whether I'm trying to hit it hard or softly, it's enforcing proper technique. And if I enforce proper technique in every stroke that I do, I'm going to become a consistent and better player each time I play. So we're now on to the final key point of today's video, which is the 6th most common mistake that I see beginner players make, is that they're not playing with players of a similar level. Why is it important that we do this as a beginner learning the sport? Is because we want to ensure that the pace that we're playing at suits our technical abilities in tennis. If I was a beginner player trying to play with an advanced player that hits the ball at a much faster pace and more consistently, I'm not going to be able to stay in the rally with them. So that might be discouraging to me as a learner. And on top of that, it's going to be inefficient in terms of my learning, because if the ball's coming much faster at me every time at a high intensity, I'm not going to have enough time to focus on using proper technique to execute my shots. And I'll end up just compensating and using incorrect technique to just try and get the ball back, because I'm going to feel pressured to keep up with this player that's much better than me. But if I'm a beginner and I'm playing with a player of a similar level, whether they're slightly better or weaker or same, it's going to ensure that the pace is steady. And remember, slow and steady wins the race. Ensure that we're using correct technique and footwork on our shots as a beginner before we dive into playing high intensity rallies. Okay, that pretty much wraps it up for today's video. I hope you found the tips useful. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay safe.